parties. Mark, let's bring you back on, and you're going to take us into the world of OpenAI.
Brian, with Bilderberg still in our rearview mirror and not completely out of sight, you'll see the connection here in a few minutes. OpenAI is really ascending right now, becoming more and more hardwired into our society. This Reuters headline, OpenAI signs content deals with the Atlantic and Vox Media. And this is part of a much broader marriage between OpenAI and the mass media cartel. We'll move on from there. And I won't get into all these slides in total detail, but there are some important elements. Sam Altman, who we'll learn about a little more in a minute, he's leading the OpenAI revolution, you might say, and he has signed content and product partnerships with the Atlantic and Vox Media, helping that AI firm to boost and train its products. Why is this important? The agreements with the Atlantic and Vox come on the heels of several media firms signing similar deals, get that, thereby giving OpenAI access to their news content and archives to train OpenAI's large language models, that is. Such partnerships are not only crucial for the training of these AI models, they can also be lucrative for news publishers, which have traditionally been denied a slice of profits that the internet giants earn for distributing their content. And last week, OpenAI, and this is a big one, signed a deal with the massive media conglomerate and Wall Street Journal owner, News Corp. And let's learn a little bit more about News Corp. More on News Corp, founded by our friend Rupert Murdoch. It's a U.S.-based mass media and publishing company in Midtown Manhattan, operating across news media, book publishing, and cable TV. News Corp's notable assets include Dow Jones and Company, which publishes the Wall Street Journal. And then on your side of the pond, there's News UK, which publishes The Sun and The Times, and also The Sunday Times, and also the book publisher HarperCollins. Overall revenue in 2023 for News Corp, $9.88 billion. And over in the land down under, News Corp owns many news outlets and it controls more than 150 major and smaller newspapers, weeklies and dailies across the whole of Australia, almost total saturation there. So it's a really big company getting into AI. There's a lot of ramifications. That's what I'm getting at. Now, moving on from there, News Corp's chief American assets, and there's complexities. I won't read the whole thing. Those that want to freeze the slides can read more about the maneuvering and chess moving, you might say, of these media giants and who buys what and who owns what. But in terms of U.S.-based news media, News Corp also owns the New York Post, Barron's, MarketWatch, Investors Business Daily, Private Equity News, Dow Jones Newswires, Dow Jones Indexes, and get this, 10% ownership of the Dow Jones Industrial Average itself, and about 7 other Dow Jones entities. Very interesting. A lot of media power there, a lot of diversity, you might say, within their company. Moving on from there, we have some other important matters to cover. This is just a sundry item. News Corp was actually born there in England, 1785. Their story began there. The Daily Universal Register, later renamed The Times, was launched. So it's an iconic brand, they say, with a legacy that spans centuries. Moving on, this is the official News Corp press release on the deal with OpenAI. They're calling it a landmark deal, a multi-year global partnership, in fact. So News Corp and OpenAI announced as of May 22nd, a historic multi-year agreement to bring News Corp news content to OpenAI. Through this partnership, OpenAI has permission to display content from News Corp News Corp mastheads in response to user questions and to enhance its products with the ultimate objective of providing people the ability to make informed choices based on reliable information, they say, and news sources. OpenAI will receive access to current and archived content from News Corp's major outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, Barron's, MarketWatch, Investors Business Daily, FN, and the New York Post, the Times, the Sunday Times, the Sun, the Australian outlets I mentioned, many items there. In addition to providing content, News Corp will share journalistic expertise to help ensure the highest journalism standards are present, they say, across OpenAI's offering. Very interesting stuff. Context, Vox Media owns The Verge and Vulture, lots of offbeat and avant-garde publications. There's websites, there's streaming services. So Vox is a bit different than some of the others. And Vox is saying that OpenAI will help the company develop its products for consumers and advertising, etc. OpenAI will get access to Vox Media's archives and so on. Separately, The Atlantic, the globalist rag that's been around way too long, also announced a similar deal giving OpenAI access to the publisher's content. The Atlantic said it's creating, quote, an experimental microsite called Atlantic Labs that will also pilot OpenAI's tech, helping the media firm explore how OpenAI can drive development of new products and features. And I think we have a quote coming up here. Well, first we have a little description of Sam Altman and what is OpenAI and what is ChatGPT. What is that bot? Well, Samuel Harris Altman, Brian, is 39 years old. He's an American entrepreneur and investor, best known as the CEO of OpenAI since 2019, considered one of the leading figures of the AI boom. OpenAI says it's an AI research and deployment company, quote unquote. Our mission is to ensure that artificial general intelligence, which is a common phrase now, not just artificial intelligence, but artificial general intelligence. And that means what they see as AI systems generally considered to be smarter than humans benefits all of humanity, quote unquote. And ChatGPT is a chatbot and virtual assistant developed by OpenAI and launched on the 30th of November in 2022. Based on large language models, it enables users to refine and steer a conversation toward a desired length, format, style, level of detail, and language. So there's some interesting background. And we'll kind of start winding up and summarizing a little bit. This is Nicholas Thompson, the CEO of The Atlantic, and he said, quote, "There's a lot of fear in the media industry about partnering with tech platforms. But I am absolutely convinced," he says, "that these deals can be beneficial, for whom, we wonder, if we've learned the right rules, structure them the right way, and hedge our bets." That's what he had to say. And going on from there, a little bit more from Reuters, OpenAI to use Financial Times content for training AI models in another media tie-up. And there's OpenAI's official logo there. The Financial Times has signed a deal, it says here from Reuters, with OpenAI to license its content for the development of AI models and allow this ChatGPT to answer queries with summaries attributable to the newspaper. This latest tie-up is saying financial terms of the agreement are not disclosed. The latest deal will help the startup enhance the GPT chatbot with archived content from the Financial Times, and the firms will work together, OpenAI and Financial Times, to develop new AI products and features for Financial Times readers, and so on and so forth. So to keep going from there, this is a brief summary that I wrote that is intended to be a longer Bilderberg long view article that I'll soon be submitting, like what I submitted late last summer, looking at Bilderberg beyond the meetings. This is the start of that article. One need not be overly suspicious, I wrote, to realize that the annual Bilderberg meetings, the 70th such meeting in 70 years, recently concluded in Madrid, with AI heavily represented among its attendees, apparently function as an incubator for megatrends that have a strong tendency to quickly leave the conceptual realm and hardwire themselves into society. Case in point, just as this year's Bilderberg gathering came and went, headlines were and still are popping up frequently to announce that OpenAI, a company owned by longtime Bilderberg regular Sam Altman, is making scores of deals with media companies that will enable its chatbot to access the news content of those companies. Exactly what such partnerships will mean in terms of how news is formulated and presented, and how journalists, working journalists, and the legal landscape may be affected, that is not altogether clear yet, I wrote there. And continuing a little more, I won't get into the whole thing. those news organizations with more than a fleeting linkage to Bilderberg are Germany-based Axel Springer, the parent company of the journal Politico, which is influential on Capitol Hill in the U.S., the Atlantic magazine, represented at Bilderberg every year by former Washington Post writer Ann Applebaum, of course, the Financial Times, which is also tied into the Global Cities movement in Chicago, Le Monde, a major French newspaper, represented at Bilderberg several times, and Prisa Media, a Spanish media conglomerate, that also has popped up at Bilderberg. And winding down here, it's interesting to note that OpenAI, Brian, OpenAI.com is the website, collaborated with Georgetown University and with Stanford to do a study on disinformation. And here we thought that AI was going to be largely a benevolent thing. Well, I looked at it a little bit. There are a number of miscellaneous uses that anyone could find somewhat handy. It's true. But the people developing it and the people making these media deals are looking deeper at the disinformation issue. And we'll move on from there to explain very briefly what that is. All of that, and eventually funneled, Brian, through Cornell University, which is in Ithaca, New York. And they came up with this study, Generative Language Models and Automated Influence Operations, Emerging Threats and Potential Mitigations. And what they're basically saying is they don't want AI to end up in the wrong hands with disinformation change agents and online influence peddlers, because they might contradict the globalist party line. That's what they're saying. So they're burning the midnight oil to try and prevent that from happening. And in this last slide, it's worth noting, and this sort of reflects a little bit of what Diane got into, Moderna is also plugged in with OpenAI, and I can imagine that'll have some downside to it in terms of where that will lead. So maybe we can talk about it a little more in extra, Brian, but that's how it's shaping up so far. Back to you.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much. And of course, the immense power of those organizations in not only media, but AI now being unleashed to support the political parties fighting for election. Meanwhile, smaller organizations do their best without the power of AI.